Peace, I'm Diamond, and welcome back to my channel. I wanted to start off that conversation about the universe as energy, and my favorite place to start with that is on the topic of water, because when you hear that the universe as energy, you hear it pretty often now, and it's like, well, what does that even mean? And in the case of water, it breaks down so beautifully to explain that the substantial nature of everything, including us, our bodies, our thoughts, the whole spectrum of experience consists of the same fundamental material, which is energy. And I have my notes here because the journey to consolidating all of this into a way that would hopefully make sense and be as exciting to hear as it was to look up and learn. It's so, I didn't even know that actually there's a whole field of study now called structured water, right? So pretty much water's natural structure is unlike anything else on this planet. That's why when we go looking for life off of this planet, it's the first thing that we look for. And science is now being able to actually will start to put the pieces together and figure out what is it about water on a molecular level, on an atomic level. Why water? Why does it work the way that it does? Why does it dissolve everything? It's called the universal solvent. Why is it essential for life? And so they have, it's so cool. All right. So as far as just natural structure of water, it actually forms crystals in its liquid form. When you think of something being crystalline, its atoms being structured uniformly to the point where it packs together and makes patterns. That's something that happens at freezing. So ice, or some solid material that you're working with, like solid gold or something, the atoms are packed so tightly together that you have a gold bar, for example. In the case of water, it does it as a liquid, really just the whole environment of the water. But if you just say electromagnetic, you're taking into consideration the magnetic force of its environment, including the pull of the earth, any matrices or materials that magnetic force had to travel through to reach the water. What else? The sun, of course, like light, which is radiation, is really just the excitement of atomic particles. That's what radiation is. And the sun contributes to about 50% of the radiation that we feel here. And based on that influence and temperature, I actually drew it. It was, so just based on that influence, water takes on this six-sided figure, this hexagonal shape. The individual molecules come together and they make these kind of honeycomb shapes and sheets. And for anybody that is an organic chemist, was not about to draw this in 3D. I don't have the talent. Argue with your mother about it, but you get the idea from this picture. If you see here, these are the individual water molecules, H2O, and they form together to make these honeycomb six-sided shaped, I'll call them macromolecules. So it's just the combination of the individual ones. And based on that configuration of its molecules, it has been able to store, copy, and transfer information. And I'm just like, this shit is just like, wow, right? Okay, so what do I mean by information? Well, there's a couple different experiments that have been done over time, and they're still being done, thankfully. The research is growing, actually. But there have been, so I'll talk about the first one, which, like, this really speaks to the idea of bringing in new information and it taking a minute for people to catch up, which is the epitome of the subtle world, of the spiritual realm, of that which isn't immediately and already available for people to see and believe in. Okay, so first man, Dr. Ben Veniste, of France. He was an immunologist, right? And in his lab, one of the things that he was able to work with was like an allergen test. So if you've ever had this test done, they pretty much will take a sample, and in the on the lab side, what happens is they will introduce the sample that you give them of blood. They'll be able to introduce that sample to different allergens such as pollen, like bee venom, different like fruit, protein. And if you're allergic, then your blood sample would actually show your white blood cells having a reaction. And you can see it and quantify it and say, okay, this shows me that this person is allergic. So in the case of Dr. Benveniste's experimental setup, what they ended up doing was taking a certain amount of bee venom, and they did multiple serial dilutions to the point where we were looking at 1 billion-time dilution of the original bee venom. They were able to take that highly diluted sample of bee venom, and it's diluted in water, of course, and they introduced it to the blood samples, and they were actually able to see an immune reaction that was comparable to what they were seeing at the more concentrated end of the spectrum. So if you want kind of like a visual representation of what that means, imagine taking one raindrop from outside and putting it in to a tub of 1 billion other raindrops, mixing that completely so that it's homogeneous or uniform throughout, taking a sample from that randomly, freezing it, and comparing that image to the image of your original collected raindrop, they would show the same exact pattern. And that's a 1 in 1 billion chance that you collected the exact same raindrop. No, it's a lot more reasonable to realize that water has this ability to store and transfer the information that it picks up to whatever system that you introduce it to. Just like any other solid crystal can do, like the quartz that's used in computers, in our watches, and our phones to store and transfer information. Water has that capability naturally. One of the more popular experiments, or one of the more popular researchers with this work, is this man named Dr. Emoto from Japan. And he was actually able to have people do experiments where they spoke to different samples of water and said words that were on opposite sides of the spectrum, like I love you, I hate you. They had different music played in presence of the different water samples. They even had visual examples or visual stimuli to work on different water aliquots. And they were able to see across the board that depending on what the water was exposed to, it formed certain very distinguishable shapes when frozen. So that's showing you how its molecules are organizing themselves. And this is based off of music it's hearing. It's based off of words it's hearing. It's based off of even intention. There were experiments done where the person, a test subject, they wouldn't even speak the word. They would just direct their will towards the water, and they were able to show patterns. And that's I mean, that's amazing, like how is and before they weren't really able to explain how or why that was the case, so a lot of the earlier work was dismissed. So why does any of that matter, right? Why should you care that water has this property? Well, mess up my picture. Well, there have been some practical applications of these properties of water, but there are also a lot of spiritual and mystic applications of water as a tool of programming, of messaging, of imprinting, of carrying out a will that you direct towards it, that you instill it with. And on an energetic level, the molecular behavior and structure of water as an individual molecule, as well as the macromolecules that it forms, does just that. That's the whole point. When you think about the fact that on a molecular level, I mean, like cell by cell by cell, your body is 99% water. You can look individually at the organs Your brain, 85% water, your heart, 80% water, your lungs, 80% water, your blood, 50% water. The substantial makeup of your body is water. And what I'm saying is, like I said, on a molecular level, water picks up, stores, and transfers all the information that it receives: sound information, visual information, conscious information. What else? Physical information, obviously. Physical information being the stuff that you flush down the toilet. Whatever gets dissolved in the water. That's why scientists are actually able to take samples of water from any given place, and they're actually able to scan that sample by on an atomic level and tell you what's in it. Everything that's ever been in it. Everything that, I mean, like, they use this to find precious metals in bodies of water. They use this to, what else? Oh, one of the cool, like, practical applications of this property of water, so you can understand that it transcends, like, that divide that people try to create between science and religion. Like, they're one and the same. They're just different perspectives to approach it. But so on a practical level, they were able to find out that because the water that is inside of our bodies and the water that our cells use is structured exactly like that crystalline structure that I showed you earlier that water naturally takes on. The problem is, by the time it gets to us, because of the way that our municipal systems are set up, the way that bottling happens, just the whole water processing process that it takes to get the water from its source to us, it has lost that hexagonal or hexagonal shape or figure that it has that allows it to have those properties of carrying and storing and transferring information as efficiently. So the first thing that your body has to do when it's trying to receive the nutrients that the water is carrying through your body during digestion, for it to receive, obviously, like the hydration itself, the water, it has to reorganize it into that figure so that it can even process it. And that takes energy. So they're finding that when they restructure the water, and there's a couple ways to restructure the water, or just, cause it to go back to its natural structure. When you drink that water, or when you use it when you're cooking, just you use it, period, shower with it, your body naturally has to use less energy in order to receive that nutrient, receive that hydration. The same with plants. And that's actually one of the really amazing potentials for this work and for this information, is the fact that agriculture and like farms have been able to find that if they use structured water, they have to use less of it. Their plants are more resistant to external effects of, or the external environment, fluctuations in the external environment that it's in, including like changes in weather and temperature and things like that. They are larger, they have more color, they produce bigger and more fruit or vegetable depending on what it is. And that's even in the case of zones that are called dead zones, where the soil is pretty much like declared inert and just no good. Introducing structured water to the system restores the life-giving shape to everything in the environment, and it's able to thrive and come back alive again. And to know that that's the case, you can see physical evidence of the result of this electromagnetic influence on water, which our emotions create an electromagnetic frequency, our hearts, our brains, our body generates a huge electromagnetic field. But key there, just to think about the fact that your emotions and your intentions create an electromagnetic force. We know that water is susceptible to an electromagnetic force to the extent that it can even be restructured and show physical results in this crop. If it's given that life-giving, just natural hydration from the natural configuration of the water molecules. And I think that, like I said, that's a beautiful place to start because even when you hear something as simple as like people using holy water or making moon water, and you would initially be like just completely brush that off, like, oh, you're talking nonsense, you know. Literally, this is the way that water works on an energetic level. And like I said, that's where I wanted to kick it off with, you know, even when you think about sound healing, well, if we know now that our bodies are 99% water, or if you're just looking on a basic level, 70 to 80%, you know that it's susceptible to sound. You know that this contributes to getting it into its peak structure, and that it can not only hold that information, but it transfers it. You could understand how something like sound therapy or hearing a particular frequency can restore literal life to your body, and not just your physical body, but your emotional body, because it's electric, it's energetic, everything consists of the same thing, so you can affect it. And that's a massive, that's, I mean, hopefully that's inspiring. Hopefully that's something that makes you excited to look at the world in a different way and hopefully take advantage of the truth of, you know, the universe and your body and your place in it. And that's all for now. I am, like I said, making a part two because, y'all, when I say I'm like, every time I'm looking something up on the subject, I'm like, well, why does it work like that? How? And I found a lot of those answers, and I had an incredible time doing it, but I didn't want to make this video inaccessible. So it's kind of like I invite you to check it out because I still want to make sure that I explain the technical aspect of it, the actual molecular and energetic, explain like what all of this on this board is. I gotta get into it because it's so amazing. I want to talk about it. So I invite you to check it out. Like I said, I will still try to make it make sense in plain English, but I really want to, I gotta tell y'all about it. It's really cool. But if not, I hope that this video at least breaks it down in a way that you can at least go for yourself and look up the things I'm talking about, look up the way that it's used on crops, and maybe you can start to explore and experiment with how you interact with something as simple as water, and hopefully that can graduate to, you know, you understanding or being curious about different meditative processes, because now you understand that, okay, if I'm directing my energy this way and my body's made of energy and everything else around me is made of energy, we might be able to actually have some agency and something to do with the world that you create for yourself, at least, and hopefully collectively for the planet and all involved. And I think that's all I got for you, and I'll see you next time. Peace.